Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, or Swords, Spells, and Stealth? Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today I've got a why you should read, but before we get to that, make sure you're liking and subscribing, hitting that bell notification, give it a good old smack, so you can get regular updates for when I put out new videos. Also, make sure you're checking that description box down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, as well as links to all my social media and information about my Patreon. And guys, this is a series that I have a lot of passion for, but I don't really talk about this author too much on the channel. I've mentioned him before, and that's of course Drew Hayes. I've read like 19 books by this author, and I've loved pretty much all of them. And the Swords, Spells, and Stealth is one that I should have done a video for this a long time ago. I'm actually currently in the middle of the 5th book. This is a series that is very, very D&D based. The author actually, I think, runs like a D&D podcast. And like, he's very, very much into DMing. And so like, there's a lot of D&D elements within this story. In fact, it's pretty much entirely D&D based. It's almost lit RPG, but it's like lit RPG with like a twist, which we will get into. There are currently 5 books in this series, and I usually refer to this as the NPC series, because the first book is NPCs. Second book is Split the Party. The third book is Going Rogue. Fourth book is Siege Tactics, and fifth book is Noble Roots, which is what I am currently reading. We're going to kind of talk more about the first book, because the structure kind of holds true throughout the entire series, but there's just so much that's explored, and the way that it is kept fresh and interesting is something that I think you will like. Now, I've got a blurb. Let me go ahead and do the reading. It's, what happens when the haggling is done and the shops are closed? When the quest has been given and the steeds saddled and the adventurers are off onto their next encounter. They keep the world running, the food cooked, and the horses shoed. Yet what adventure has ever spared a thought or concern for the non-player characters? In the town of Maple Park, 4 such NPCs settle in for a night of actively ignoring the adventurers drinking in the tavern when things go quickly and fatally awry. Once the dust settles, these 4 find themselves faced with an impossible choice. Pretend to be the adventurers undertaking a task of near certain death, or see their town and loved ones destroyed. Armed only with salvaged equipment, secondhand knowledge, and a secret that could get them killed, it will take all manner of miracles if they hope to pull off their charade. And even if they succeed, the deadliest part of their journey may well be what awaits them at its end. And it does mention that there are 4 characters that these NPCs we are following within this D&D setting. That is Thistle, a gnome, Grumph, an orc, Gabrielle, a human lady, and then we've got Eric, who is a guard. But here is where I'm going to come at you with the interesting part of this world, because there is another aspect to this story that is not addressed within the blurb. Essentially, there is a real-world setting as well. So we are following NPCs, but then there's an additional setting of an in-real-life type of deal, which we follow Russell, who is a young kind of DM, GM, depending on what term you use for your dungeon master or game master. And he is running a campaign that is comprised of modules put out by Broken Bridge Publishing. These are very hard to get modules, and he keeps getting lucky into getting these, but there is a deeper mystery connected with these modules where he goes on, throughout the entire series, he goes on these adventures to secure another module and another module and another module, because these modules are a little different than your typical D&D module, or Pathfinder, what game you play, what have you. There's a little aspect where something's not quite right, and it may be that magic is real in the world. And what's kind of interesting is to see, like, because he runs his own game, where he's got his player characters, and those player characters may, at times, interact with our NPCs. And that's very, very interesting. Essentially, because we do have NPCs in the main storyline, that they are the main storyline, and then the real world stuff kind of weaves through and develops its own mystery. And that's kind of what makes this not quite a lit RPG, but more interesting, is because there is a deeper mystery that at the 5th book I still don't have an answer to. Like, we're still uncovering what this might be and how it all kind of flows through. We're not going to really kind of touch on Russell. Instead, we're going to come back to our NPC characters. And so it's kind of interesting to see our 4 characters evolve and take on these aspects, because essentially the way the story starts is that we are in Grump's tavern. He's either an orc or a half orc who owns a tavern. He makes his own beers, and like all of these friends in Maple Park are just kind of enjoying their leisure when in comes some player characters who, if you know anything about D&D, they probably failed like a survival check or something like that, and they fall over dead because they imbibed in something out in the wild they probably shouldn't have. And there's a royal decree summoning all these adventurers to deal with this quest. And so basically, it's by royal decree, if the adventurers don't show up, then the town that they're in or something like that, where they received the decree, it's been a while since I've read the first entry, but suffers reprisals. And so what's interesting about that is then these 4 non-player characters assume the roles that they think best suit them, only to discover that the roles they think suit them may not. And the exploration of those roles is very, very interesting. Throughout this entire series, we get to explore leveling up, we get to explore multi-classing, we get to explore the evolution of these characters very well through the lens of D&D, and like their interactions with their deities and their gods, and just all this interesting elements. We get to take the backstories of these NPCs and really dig deep into them. We get to, there's just all sorts of interesting stuff here. I think my favorite of the characters is, actually, okay, so my least favorite is probably Eric. Eric is just, he's a human guard when we first meet him, and where he ends up is still very interesting. To say he's my least favorite is to say, oh, I've got a handful of Skittles and I don't quite like the apple one as much as I like, the ones that, or the green ones as much as I like the ones that are red. They're all fantastic. But in order of my favorites, it probably goes Thistle, Grumpf, Gabrielle, and then Eric. And then we do meet additional characters that join our NPC's party, but I don't really want to touch on that because that's more spoilery details. That is not the objective of this video. My objective is to sell you on this, which I hope I'm doing a good job, because this is something truly special. I recently went back and I reread Dragonlance, and then I took a stab at reading the Dritz Duerden books with Homeland from Forgotten Realms. Dragonlance did not age well for me. It just felt like something that was written more for the younger audience back in the 80s, and it hadn't just aged very well. And then Forgotten Realms just felt like, it had some aspects that just didn't work for me. Now, I've been told that could be just a Salvatore thing, and that the rest of the series has a lot more to offer. However, I ended up DNFing those books. This particular series, which is only 5 books instead of, 140 or 200 like Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms, it reads very well. It's very entertaining. It kind of appeals to a wide range of readers. I could see a 13-year-old reading this and having a perfectly enjoyable time. I am 32, and I am still having a very enjoyable time. I started reading this series, I think, when I was 28, and it still holds a very dear place in my heart. I love the way that Drew Hayes tells stories. They are engaging, they are fun, they are humorous, they have stakes. You never think, oh, our party's gonna be fine. Like, there is, there are random encounters and things of that nature. There are times where you're like, oh, they're gonna die, or oh, this is going to be a problem. And I just love those stakes that he's able to put within this story, where it still feels very much like a D&D campaign, but at no time do I feel like he is breaking the immersion of the story because of the structure that we have with the deeper mystery between the 2 different storylines and the multiple parties, where we're dealing with Russell's player characters and we're dealing with, Thistle and Gabriella's NPC characters. It's very, very intriguing, and it's just a compelling mystery, as well as using the module format. We get new stories, we're constantly meeting new characters, we are in new environments, and it just keeps it engaging and fresh, and I love that about this series. Please let me know in the comments down below if this is one you are interested in picking up. I think that this will appeal widely to the fantasy community. That said, guys, that's really all I've got here for you. I would love for just somebody out there to pick up this series and start ranting and raving and fall in love with it like I have. So let me know in the comments down below if you've read it, if you've heard of it, if you even plan on giving it a shot. These are all self-pub, and I believe available on Kindle Unlimited. I could be incorrect on that. I do know they used to be available. But yes, this is a self-pub series. An author that I am absolutely in love with. That said, guys, that is all I've really got for you. So, till next time, peace out. Stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.